back to my channel. It's Monday the 26th of June 2023, and the reason I know that is because I just did do a bit of a video talking about what stage we're at with the sale and things like that, but I thought I would do another sit down video because on my Facebook memories, I think it was yesterday, I got a reminder of a post that I put on my Facebook saying that I'd made my Kirsten's Curiosities Facebook page and I was inviting my friends and family to like it, and it was 7 years ago, and I thought, wow, although 7 years is quite a long time, so much has happened in that time that I thought I'd do a little video and try and put it in order, but so much has happened, it's very difficult for me to order. I'm squinting just a little bit because it's quite bright outside, and I've made myself notes because, you know, anyway. So yeah, my first YouTube video went out in February 2017, do you believe? I was so nervous to do the video, but my kids, I think they dared me, not thinking that I would do it, and I did it. And here we are all these years later. So I have talked about this, how I started reselling, but I will just briefly say it again for anybody who hasn't heard the story. So I was going through a little patch of self-doubt, let's put it that way. It was a bit more than self-doubt. I was quite down, I was quite bleak, I had a bit of a black cloud over me at that point, and it coincided with us taking on a new shop. We had various shops selling art materials, and we just opened one in Exmouth. It was a really nice shop to work in. It had lovely big windows, lots of light, it wasn't cold. It was sort of rectangular and square edges, so you could have stands really flush against the walls, none of that sort of higgledy-pigglediness of other shops. It was a really lovely shop, but it wasn't well supported, so it was quite quiet, and with the state that my brain was in at the time, I was struggling. It made it worse. I had too much time to think. I was pacing a bit like a caged animal, and it wasn't good. So my husband suggested that maybe we should start selling art materials online, and he said obviously there's Amazon we could sell through, or eBay, or Etsy, because Etsy you could sell at the time, it was just vintage or handmade, homemade stuff, or the supplies that you needed to make handmade artist stuff. So I could sell art materials on there. I started looking at Amazon and I just found it so confusing. At that stage I just couldn't take that on, it was too much. So I started an Etsy account selling that sort of thing, and then at the same time my husband, trying to work out Amazon, found Nick Hill, somebody you may have heard of, and he became obsessed with Nick. And he'd come home at dinner time and he'd be saying, we could buy anything, we'd sell it online, we don't have to just do art materials, we could do anything at all. So one Sunday, no, it must have been a bank holiday, because I remember the first car boot that I went to, it was the one I went to recently at Exmouth Archery Club, and it's only on bank holidays, so there you go. One bank holiday we went to this car boot, and I think we spent about a tenner. We bought a few old tins. I still remember there was an old tin with like a royal emblem on it and stuff, and I started selling bits and bobs on my Etsy, and I found that the vintage stuff that I was selling on my Etsy was selling way better than any of the art materials, and I really started to enjoy it and throw myself into it. I did, at the time I was selling some stuff on eBay as well. I tried selling clothes, did not do very well with that, but other stuff as well I sold on eBay, but it was the Etsy stuff that I really enjoyed the most. And back then Etsy really was just vintage and handmade. There wasn't all this mass-produced stuff from China that they sell now, which is quite frustrating. And all my stuff was going all over the world, which I found really interesting. So I sent stuff to Brazil, to Russia, to China, to a lot of it went to the US and Canada, but literally all over the place. It was brilliant. So that's how it started, and it quickly snowballed. We took on so that must have been 2016, summerish, around the summer of 2016. November 2016, I got my first antique centre space, and I must have already started going to auctions, I think. Yeah, I must have done. I don't know, my brain's all about to mush, because to fill up that space I must have been already going to auctions. I remember my first auction I went to, because we used to have an auction house here in Ottery, and I went down and I didn't buy anything. I just stood and watched to see how it worked, because I'd never been to an auction before, and I wanted to know how you bid and what the sort of dynamics were and all that sort of thing. And I found it absolutely fascinating, but I didn't actually bid on anything. And it wasn't until the next time that I went, I think I spent £5 plus commission. But that quickly snowballed. Yeah, so we got the unit at Bridport. That was November 2016. I managed to find these dates from Facebook posts that I did. After that, I got a second unit at Bridport, a bigger one. So I had a small one and then a bigger one. Again, I was filling up loads of stuff. I think in hindsight, I would have been better sticking with the small one, because with the extra rent from the bigger one, I didn't make as good profit margins there. Yeah, I think I would have been better sticking with, but it's a learning curve, isn't it? It's a learning curve. I don't know the time scale of between getting the 1 unit to the 2 units. I don't remember. Soon after that, also, I got a unit at McBain's, which is another antique centre out near Exeter Airport, where I would sell big bits of furniture and stuff like that. When did I get my van? July 2017, I got my big black van, my K-Team van. Which I absolutely loved. It was brilliant for doing auctions and stuff like that. Not so practical for day-to-day life, which is why we had to sell her in the end, which is a real shame, because I miss her in certain circumstances. But in November 2017, Bex, my friend, who, if you have watched her channel, link in the description box, helped me out. I did a fair at West Point, which was like a big antiques fair. Again, it was just a massive learning curve. The expense for having the space that I did, it was about, I want to say about £400. To pay out is quite a lot, and I did make a profit, but to me it wasn't worth it, because one, Bex had put her time in for free, so I didn't have to pay her apart from, I don't know, a couple of bottles of wine and a Chinese or something. I couldn't have managed it on my own. It was a 2-person job, and the amount of planning that went into it in advance, and then the packing up, and then the unpacking, and then the repacking, and then the unpacking again, to me that wasn't worth it. I'm sure some people do it really well, and if you're doing one fair after the other, you haven't got, like I had the shop, so I had to unpack stuff and put it back in the shop. Other people will have just kept that stuff packed, ready to go to the next fair and the next fair, you see what I mean. So yeah, that was 2017. I also got a cabinet in another antique centre in Honiton. It was just a glass cabinet. Oh, I did get a few shelves as well, actually. That was a complete failure. Did not work for me at all. I don't know if I was unlucky or if I was selling the wrong things, but no, I made a loss there. And then I started selling bits and bobs in the shop. So in the shop we had, it was no longer a newsagent's, it was a card, stationery and art shop. And then we just had a few little gifts that we used to sell. I don't know, money boxes and bits and bobs that people would buy for presents. And then I started making little sections of my secondhand stuff took over like one shelf unit, and it started going really well, so I started expanding and taking over more and more of the shop. And I suppose that's when we got the idea of me taking over as a whole. I don't know what the date was, and I know I've skipped a bit here as well, because Exmouth shop, the one that I was in originally, wasn't doing that great, and we decided to close it. So we had a word with the landlords and said that we were going to pull out, and just before the end I had a pop-up shop in the shop. So we took all the art stuff out and we put all some stuff into the shop, and I had it as a pop-up shop for 2 or 3 weeks, I think, which I really enjoyed. I sold some stuff there, but it didn't go crazy. I think with my kind of shop you have to build up a reputation and get people to know that you're there and things like that. But yeah, it was fun. So then I gradually started selling more and more in the shop downstairs, and I spent all my time going to auctions and then driving to Bridport to my units out there, and then to McBain's out there, and to the Honiton there, you know, to and fro. And it sort of dawned on us that it would make more sense if I was to take over the shop downstairs, have it solely as my Kirsten's Curiosities, and me run it totally on my own, because we had staff helping out downstairs, so obviously that's an expense that you save on. Yeah, so that's what happened after a few years. Now I can't remember, I think, where are we now? 2022. I think maybe it was like 2020. No, 2020 was pandemic, wasn't it? So maybe 2018? Maybe? I don't know, it's terrible, I can't remember. Yeah, it's about then. Sorry, my brain's just gone quick. I thought I'd quickly just have a look at my notes and just see what I'm missing. So I said how it started. It started as a suggestion by my husband to keep my mind busy when it was not in a great place, and it really worked, because I became obsessed. And it worked. It got me out of the funk. My first car boot sale, I mentioned about that. Oh, hang on. My son just came round to help me send my newsletter. So if you signed up for my newsletter, check your emails, check your spam, check your files in your emails. You may have one. It's just a short one, but again, it's just to keep that rolling. So fingers crossed and all that you've got that. So I can't remember where I got up to. First car boat sale, my first auction, I told you about that. My experience of selling at antique centres, I think I pretty much covered that as well. If I'd had a smaller unit, I think I would have had a better, rather than taking on a big space and paying the extra rent. That's one of the things that I am thinking about doing, getting a space in an antique centre. One, I know the trade so much better now. I've got so much more experience. There's one thing putting your stuff in the antique centre and then going back and seeing what's sold, but actually being in a shop all the time and being the only person, you know what people are asking for, what things sell quicker. So that I've got a lot more experience. So I feel like if I had a space in an antique centre, I would be more successful at it. But I would probably have a small space, not pay out a ridiculous amount for a big space, and then just be selective about what I put in there. My experience of buying at car boot sale versus auctions, and that has changed so much over the years. So to start with, I preferred auctions to start with. I felt like, especially once I got my van, I could go to an auction, I could fill up my van, literally fill it from an auction in one day. So often I would go to Oakhampton on a Wednesday morning, I would get there at 8 o'clock, I'd finish there about 2 o'clock, I'd get home, unload the van, so I wouldn't be done until about 5 o'clock. So it was a really full day, but I had a whole van full of stock, and I didn't feel like I could do the same from car boot sales. But my buying patterns have changed over the years, And auctions around here have changed a hell of a lot. The whole lockdowns and the whole lockdowns around COVID times changed the whole auction experience. So a lot of them who weren't online went online, some closed, some went to online only, and the prices at auctions inflated massively, and it just became less viable for me to buy at auction from the ones that I was used to buying from. And because I knew what was selling better in the shop, I could pick out those things so much easier at car boot sales. When I first started, I used to go for volume, so I would buy a lot of auction job lots and then pick out all the bits to sell, and it would fill my shop, but there's a lot of tat in there as well that you get left with. Whereas car boot sales, I'm picking individual items that I want to sell. So that's how it's evolved. Certainly the whole coronavirus lockdowns made a massive difference to my business. It changed the direction of it completely. It was, so I went from buying mainly at auction and mainly dealing just in second-hand goods to buying in new stock and only buying from car boots. So it changed, really changed. So in lockdown, I was looking for stock that I could repurchase because car boots weren't the same. Auctions had pretty much seized up, and I was finding it difficult to find decent stock. So we got in the signs was a new thing during the lockdowns. I got candles. I did all the Christmas decorations. I did baskets. All of those things were new for lockdown, and they all helped my shop. I mean, the Christmas thing is so lovely. I'll miss that. You know, I had 3 Christmas trees full of beautiful fair trade Christmas decorations. So that was all during the lockdown period. I also got prints in, and I got in the eco-friendly gift cards, wax melts, puzzles. Puzzles didn't take off really well. That's not something that I would repeat. But yeah, everything else did pretty well, to be honest. I'm really pleased. And then last summer, when my husband took on his allotment, we then started selling the planters that we met the chap at car boot sale, and he was making them for us. So I sold a lot of planters last summer. I also sold quite a lot of plants. It worked well last year. This year it just hasn't happened. I don't know why. We've just had our minds elsewhere, to be honest. And then at the beginning of this year, we were looking for different things, and I said to my husband, well, let's go to a trade fair. Let's go find some different products at the trade fair just to boost the shop up that bit more. And I got some more suppliers. So I got the English soap company, so the beautiful smelling soaps and candles from them. I got another supplier of silver jewelry. So just before Christmas, I'd got a silver supplier that I found online, and I started selling those in the shop just before Christmas, and they went really well. So I got a different silver jewelry supplier. So that's been a bonus. When my husband had closed his art material shop, I'd sold off the last few bits of his stock in my shop, and we felt like we could carry that on. So we actually bought in some new art stock to sell. So I've got a little art section. So that was another thing that we reintroduced this year. And then there was like the gnomes and the hares and the fair trade Buddhas and goddesses and all that sort of thing. They've been a real hit. The fair trade stuff, the sea horses and whales and the beautiful birds, they've all gone really well. I also found online a company that supplies stuff from India, so all the sarongs and throws, beautiful poofs and bags and cushions. They've gone quite well, and not as well as like the fair trade birds and the goddesses and stuff, but yeah, nothing's been a flop. So it's been constantly evolving and constantly changing. And one thing that I know that I forgot to mention is back in January 2021, me and my son produced the website. So that's another thing that I'm really proud of, that again has evolved. Originally I'd set it up thinking that locals would use it and that I would get orders for them to pick up. You know, people would look on it, see what I'd got in stock, and then do a local pickup and pick up the stuff if we kept having the lockdowns. But it never really happened, and most of the sales I got on there were from viewers of my YouTube channel. So I am very, very grateful, and I'm hoping that that's something that's still going to be worthwhile when I haven't got the shop anymore. I'm hoping that I can somehow work it into my business, but I don't know, we'll see. Right, I think we've covered up over all the things that have happened, and we're back to where we are now. We've got a buyer, we're moving on, and we'll see what's next. God, that was a lot of talking, wasn't it? Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. Any questions, let me know. Thumbs up's always appreciated. And if you enjoy my videos, whatever form they take, please do subscribe. And remember to hit the notification bell, because then it will remind you when a video has gone up. Take care, stay safe, and I will see you soon.